All right, well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome into our virtual world. And today we are joined by our first special guest, Mr. Masessa. How you doing, Mr. Masessa?
I'm doing well, Mr. Flugie. Good morning, boys and girls. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so I'm happy you could join me today, and I really wanted to talk about athletics and what brings us to where we are in athletic events and athletic performances. And I know that you value athletics a lot, and I came up with a couple questions that I think me and the boys and girls are interested in. And I'd like to know, where did your road to athletics begin? What, if you were to think of, what was the first activity you ever loved?
The first activity I ever loved, I loved pickup games in the park, recess, a great competitive game of kickball or touch football that I would play in the Catholic school, blacktop. Those were the activities that really, when I think back, when I started really playing games at school was when I was inspired to start playing sports outside of school.
All right, so you loved recess, that's clear, and you loved all the games. What would you say was your first organized practices? When you started practicing something as a kid, what was the first sport or activity you remember as a kid as your first organized practice?
Yeah, it was a Pop Warner football practice. First time I ever put a helmet on. I was very young. I was probably 6 years old. And, running around with my pads on and kind of being yelled at. And, the one exercise that we all dreaded was 6 inches. So 6 inches was when you lie flat on your back, your hands are to the side, and you have to lift your legs up.
Ooh, the leg lift.
Off the ground. And the
leg lift's a tough one.
Like
I had friends doing that, warming up with that. That's a tough one.
Open and close with your legs. And it would kill. It would hurt so bad, but man, it made you dig deep and really think about what you needed to do in that moment to get through that exercise. Because if you dropped your feet, the coach made us keep going. And that's the kind of thing that builds character. It's hard. And that's what I love about when I participated in sports, man. There was winners and losers. I learned how to lose. I learned how to win. I learned how to be a good competitor, be a good sport. Sometimes it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But all those life lessons I learned through right away when I first started playing sports as a youth, 5 or 6 years old.
So obviously you would say then football was your first organized games you participated in. But as you grew, what about middle school and high school? Did you branch out from football? Any other sports or activities you played as you grew up?
I was a 3-sport athlete growing up, Mr. Flugie. So I played football in the fall, I played basketball in the winter, and I played baseball in the spring up and into my sophomore year in high school when I made a commitment to just focus on football because I knew I wanted to go to college to play football. So I had to take those off-season times to work out and lift weights and train like a football player. But I continued to play basketball through the Catholic Youth Organization, CYO. And I did that as an adult also. I played in pickup basketball games just to get that run around and get that indoor sweat. Because I feel like basketball is probably one of the hardest sports. You're constantly running and moving. So
yeah, full motion. I definitely agree. And I share with you, the love of football. I too played football and I played soccer my whole life prior to it. But, like you said, high school football helped lead me to college. You referenced it that, sports can really be that leapfrog where as you're doing something new, you're performing in those games with those hard practices, you're sacrificing for others. Those I felt like were some of the greatest lessons from playing team sports and doing things like that. And, even you mentioned that you love basketball. And, I know that basketball, again, is that great sport. And really, it's tough and that movement and like watching the finals and knowing what it takes to persevere in those last few minutes, hitting that last foul shot when the pressure is on. I referenced it when we talked over our videos that, a real basketball player could practice 1,000 foul shots in a day just so they can make that one foul shot to win the game when it means the most. And, that to me is the practice in basketball too. Just like that football idea that we have to go and push ourselves for others, realizing that it's not about you. And I think you realized that too as you were in college because you became a teacher, right, Mr. Masessa?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I got to just like one point on that pressure situation, Mr. Flugie, because when I said earlier, like it builds character to have to do something that's so hard that you're like, I can't do this. And then you just keep going, mind over body until you're finished. That pressure, that feeling, it's a life lesson for an individual. When you can handle that in that moment, you remember those moments for the more difficult times that happen as an adult. You're like, I can do this. I just, you got to dig deep. You got to talk to other people. You got to figure out a way to get something done. That's what athletics all throughout my life has helped me do and helped me be, I think, successful as a teacher and as a vice principal too.
Yeah. So what was your favorite part of teaching? I guess if you were to think back when you were in your teaching days, best part, what was the best to highlight?
Oh, I loved interacting with the students. I liked getting down and doing push-ups with my middle school students. I was, it was hard for them to catch up to me with pull-ups, so they're always chasing me. And to me, I was just trying to be a role model for them in fitness and the way that I conducted myself in exercise is like, hey, I'm not just telling you to do it. I'm doing it too. Let's go. And that to me, I think that inspired a lot of students. I still hear from some of them today when they talk about those things. So yeah, it's my interactions with the kids. That's what I love the most about being a phys ed and health teacher.
No, and I think one of the things too that you don't give yourself enough credit. I know personally, like your love of basketball, but you had a pretty bad basketball injury playing for the district, didn't you? And you bounced back from that, didn't you?
I never thought I'd run or jump again, Mr. Flugie. My head was spinning when that injury occurred on such a moment that it was so unexpected. For
those of you who don't know, Mr. Masessa was playing in a charity basketball game and he tore his Achilles tendon, which is important for the bottom of your foot to jump. And he's really bounced back. So, you persevered through that, Mr. Masessa.
Absolutely. Bounce back. I could do everything that I've always been able to do. My leg looks a little different, but I can do everything that I've done before. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So I have a personal question now. Back in your best time, what was your best 40-yard dash time? Best 40-yard dash you ever ran?
I think my fastest was a 4.6.
Ooh, 4.6. All right. Because P is all about measurables. Now, I was never in the force at all, but I did challenge some people to a race, and I looked up some old film on you, Mr. Masessa, and I hope you don't mind if we share this with the kids. We got some videotape of Mr. Masessa running a 40-yard dash. Let's take a look. Thank you to the PTO helping me get this in a clean, nice version.
What a fun day.
Now, just a little backdrop to this. On Thanksgiving, we always do a turkey trot, and we decided to host a 40-yard dash race between 4 of our staff members. In the first column, right here, is Lisa Nemec, one of our second grade teachers. Second in line is Mr. Masessa, down in his stance. Third, Miss Martucci, PE teacher we worked with last year, the beginning of the year, for a great time. And over at the end, down in my sprinting stance, is me, Mr. Flugie. I decided to challenge Mr. Masessa. And now knowing he ran a 4.6, let's see what happens when Mr. Masessa runs the 40-yard dash against 3 of our staff members. Let's see what we get here. All right, friends,
Oh,
if
that
you
was
missed it,
fun.
one more time.
That was fun, Mr. Flugie.
This was good. He gets a good jump. I hit about second gear, and I looked at you. I started looking over, and I got second place. So I got to give you credit, Mr. Masessa, that you beat me. You took me out last year. I thought I had a chance against maybe a guy who had an injury and was going to be slower than he was one day, and you weren't. You were pretty quick that day.
You know, Mr. Flugie, it takes a lot to come back from an injury, that's for sure. But, I think on that day, I just got a good jump on you. That's all. It's any given day, anything can happen, right?
It's true. And I'm thinking around maybe this Thanksgiving time. What do you say we get a rematch?
I think that's a great idea.
All right, we're going to work on reaching out to some people, see if we can get any other runners. But really, friends, we're going to think about maybe doing this for charity. I'm thinking about a way, maybe who do you think's going to win? Do you think you're going to put a $5 donation to your PTO on me, Mr. Flugie? Maybe a $5 donation if you think Mr. Masessa is going to win? I don't know. It's something we're going to work on. But really, the one thing we want to highlight, through this whole process, virtual education, in person, that PE is still awesome. And let's see if we can organize a virtual race. So I appreciate you agreeing to it. We're going to work out some details and figure it out. Any last remarks, anything else before we get going?
No, you know what? When we were talking earlier kind of about like the road to athletics and everything, Mr. Flugie, I keep this sign here in my office. It takes only one person to change your life. And, I had coaches throughout my years growing up, and I had teachers who inspired me to become the individual that I am today. And, I'll never forget, he's still a friend of mine, although he's retired and moved to South Carolina. We talk, a couple times a month still. He was a role model to me, becoming a teacher, a coach, a mentor to students, young students who, who are very successful today, but when they were younger, they needed help and guidance. And so I think that in the world of physical education and as a teacher, we have an advantage to really change and help shape a child's life. So I still coach kids and interact with former students who I coached because, those relationships are important. When you need somebody and you remember somebody who really made a difference in your life, a lot of times you can reflect back to a great teacher or a great coach. So I keep that sign behind me all the time because I feel like on any given day, there could be a child walks in my office and I could change their day that may help change their life. And that's what's great. And I appreciate that about you, Mr. Flugie, and your efforts as a phys ed teacher. So thanks for having me on today.
No, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming in. And, we'll see maybe more, friends. Who else can we meet from around the district and see what their road to athletics was? Thank you for your time. Appreciate it, Mr. Masessa, and we'll talk to you soon.
Be well, everyone.